You're listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies. And today, my guest is director Jay Silverman. And this is the second time he's been on the show. I'm really excited to have him back. And we're talking about his new movie called Saving Paradise, which is absolutely adorable. Welcome to the show again, Jay.
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful, Jan, that I was invited back on.
Well, my pleasure. My pleasure. We had you on the show, what, a couple of years ago for Off the Menu?
That's what you call pre-pandemic.
Yes, a pre-pandemic movie, for sure.
Exactly.
For
Yes, that's correct.
Yes. So did you record this? Did you film this movie before the pandemic?
Yes, we actually filmed this in 2019. We finished post in 2020, literally one day before LA closed.
Wow.
So
Wow.
we thought we were very fortunate to get it all done and take the movie to market, but as you can see, it took us all the way until now to finally get the movie distributed for reasons that are obvious, you know.
Right. Right. Exactly.
And in
Exactly.
the meantime, the entire business has evolved.
You know, I was just reading a long article yesterday by Scott Stuber. I think it's Scott Stuber, who's the head of production at Netflix, about the industry and how it's changed, and the pandemic just rushed things in another way that we had not been expecting before. So it was a fascinating article to hear his perspective on the industry, where it's going to go now. So it's always evolving, always changing.
I'm ready for it. I'm
Me
just
too.
now making my next movie until it's over.
Oh, good, 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 good. Well, let's talk about this one. Saving Paradise is just, you make these really sweet, heartwarming love stories, which is what I love. And this one it really is, in the vein of It's a Wonderful Life, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. I have to watch that absolutely every year. And it has that feel to it. So tell me how because you didn't write this, tell me how you were attracted to this project. And also then we'll also tell the audience a little bit about the synopsis of the film.
Well, number one, I was attracted to this project because of the theme, which was in my opinion, a very refreshing type of maybe old-fashioned movie to make at a very unique time in history when the country was so divided, and I just thought it was a really timely subject. The way my process works as a filmmaker is Bethany Serrano, who is one of my producers, found the project on the blacklist. And the blacklist, for people that don't know, is if you are a viable producer, you have an invitation to essentially new screenplays that are available to purchase. And I was lucky enough to find this property through Bethany, and we met Van Billet that wrote the screenplay, and it's a true story about his life and how he, as a investment banker, tried to acquire a pencil company. And in the story, as you probably noticed, it's a small little pencil factory in a small little town in the Midwest, and it's fighting for its life. And the outcome of it is not much different than the story of It's a Wonderful Life, or even Norma Ray. You see how the community gets together to fight the evils of big corporate America taking over this company and moving it to another country.
And it goes from there. It is, what I was saying, I've said this a number of times, that during the pandemic, I didn't want to watch anything heavy. I just avoided anything that was too heavy, and I only wanted light movies. And this is one of those movies that falls into that category, where it just takes you on a journey, and it, brought tears to my eyes, and, just a wonderful cast. Oh my goodness, we got to talk about the cast of this film. Your lead characters, William, is it Mosley? Is that how you say it?
Correct.
William Mosley and Joanna Brady.
Correct.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, they're adorable. They've got great chemistry on screen. You can tell the audience where they might have seen these actors before, because when you see their faces, they are familiar.
Absolutely. Well, William Mosley is, as most of us who have children follow the Narnia series, was the lead of Narnia, and he went on to do, and he's done quite well with his career. But he's a British actor, and Narnia was, his current big moment. Joanna Brady is, I think she's known, and let me just look up. Yeah, well, I saw her on Quantum, which is what is it called? Quantico. Well, you got to edit this for me. Quantico. But Quantico was on Netflix, I believe.
I mean, it was originally on ABC.
Yeah, it's a brilliant show, and she was great, and she also was on a series. I'm looking at my notes here.
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you
what's
off.
crazy? You know what's crazy about being a filmmaker and doing these interviews is that now I understand why when they bring these actors in to talk about a movie that they made 3 years ago, they seem so disassociated. So here I am. I'm already deep into another project. And obviously, this is that moment in time where I wake up in the morning and I got to talk about a movie I made 2.5 years ago, which I spent 3 years developing. And anyways, it's very exciting. But, the two leads were not only, a good chemistry, as you just said, but more importantly, I think they both believed in the project. They wanted to be a part of something. And this is an independent movie. And if you don't have that kind of passion by your lead characters, I think, you're already missing one of the most important ingredients. And some of the other characters, which were Mimi Kennedy, Mary Pat Gleason, Paul Dooley, who he is, Bill Cobbs, Lawrence Pressman, James Eichart, these are individuals that wouldn't have taken this movie unless they just fell in love with the script. And I really say, Van Billet, who was an investor in this project as well as a screenwriter, was a magnificent individual to collaborate with, because, when you're pulling from a real event and we're shooting in a real pencil factory in Tennessee, and, incidentally, that in itself was a magnificent thing to try to pull off in an independent movie, which was predominantly filmed in Los Angeles. So it was a, I mean, you witnessed the movie. Did you feel like you were in LA?
No, not at all. Not one bit. And I had reread the press notes ahead of time, and I knew it was, partially filmed in,
Right.
in the town, and we'll talk about the town with the pencil factory,
Sure.
and then also in LA. And there was no way that I could figure out what scenes were filmed where, to be honest with you. So
That's one of my favorite parts of filmmaking is it's not the special effects. It's the fact that you can create an illusion that makes, I think, incredibly creative choices that, in this particular case, makes a movie like this possible as an independent film.
100%. Now, what I did read, and this is sort of interesting, well, let's talk about how you found the pencil factory. And then those scenes I read were shot on an iPhone 10. Is that correct?
Well, okay. Here's what happened.
Okay. Get me the real truth.
The real pencil company in Tennessee is in a town called Shelbyville, and it's called the Musgrave Pencil Factory. I got to give them a pitch, because out of a level of love, we got to enter their factory, and I was given a very short period of time to capture the factory. And I even brought my DP with me, with a camera assistant. We knew we couldn't light it. We knew that we only had a few hours. So while my DP was covering important shots that had to be covered, I went around with my iPhone 10, and essentially in the opening credits, how you make a pencil from A to Z was all captured on my iPhone. And, that's a tribute to technology. And it really is a tribute to being resourceful in an independent film. So.
Yeah, well, Steven Soderbergh has filmed a couple of movies
Exactly.
on an iPhone, and as
Right.
well as Sean Baker, who I think was one of the first to
Right.
start filming, on an iPhone, or one of the early adapters doing that. So it's amazing what the technology can do nowadays, for
Yeah.
sure.
I think one of the most exciting parts is anything's possible.
Exactly.
And to say that, it's funny, I watched a show last night on Netflix that was filming in the Louvre, and I know it's, even though it's a French show, it's called Art Crimes. The whole all the scenes you can tell in the Louvre are shot with natural light, because they're not allowed. I don't know how they got in to begin with, because from what I understand, the Da Vinci Code was like the last movie they allowed, but I guess French productions are allowed. And it's beautiful because you can now do things 5 years ago you could never do with lighting equipment, with cameras, and with digital technology. So it's really something to embrace.
Yeah, exactly. And it's only going to get better as technology, keeps improving
Right.
through the years and make it, easier for filmmakers down the road.
You're right.
So tell us about how you found this wonderful pencil factory in Shelbyville, Tennessee. Is that?
Yeah, Shelbyville, Tennessee. We the writer Van had already met the owner of this pencil factory. His company at the time, when he was still in business as an investment banker, had purchased a pen company, and they wanted to complement that with a pencil factory. Their business model is buy and hold, which means the opposite of what Wall Street does. And Wall Street wants to acquire properties and then sell them at the highest price, and then that leaves the average employer or worker, basically dry and sitting on the sidelines. So he knew the owner of this factory. He had met him, when they were discussing acquiring companies, and we just made a phone call and we got right in. But the interesting part of the subject is there, pardon me, there used to be, hundreds of pencil factories in the world. Now you can count them on one hand. And this factory still is in existence today. And while I was shooting it, I'm not going to lie, I'm wondering, is this even going to be here by the time the movie comes out?
Wow, really?
So.
And is it still there?
It's still in business, yeah.
Well, we
Yeah.
still need pencils. I mean, I know we don't use pencils that much anymore, but we still need pencils. So.
Well, I think it's super fascinating, when I remember watching the Tonight Show, and Mr. K, Danny K was on, and he goes, "How do they get those airplanes up? I mean, how do they fly?" And to this day, I always found that amusing. Well, I don't know how they make pencils. I don't know where they come from. I don't know how they fabricate them. And this was a whole learning experience for me, and a great metaphor for a story that's about saving a small town that makes pencils. And you mentioned, how did I find this place? The truth of it is, there's only, I believe, 3 pencil factories in the United States now, and one of them in particular didn't even return our calls. Half of that factory, essentially, we woke up in the morning and found out they turned it into condominiums. So, it seemed like such a perfect subject. I'm really proud of the project, and I'm proud to be a part of something that I feel is inspiring as a filmmaker.
Yeah. No, you should be proud of it. It is inspiring. It's you've got, again, it's a great story, and it's a good story for us today because we're losing so much of these small businesses, and we've lost a lot through the pandemic, unfortunately, and they're saying many of them will not come back. And I know quite a few places have closed here, big places. They just closed their big stores down here. I mean, I think they're still in business in other places, but not here. So that was surprising too, that a lot of these big box stores closed their doors during the pandemic. So we're losing part of our heritage as Americans when we start to progress too far, too fast, and lose some of that warm feeling we have about the businesses that have supported towns. I mean, I lived in Rochester, New York, a long time, and that's where Mimi Kennedy's from, by the way. is Rochester, New York. She was
Sure.
one of our I mean, everybody's very proud of Mimi. I lived in Rochester a long time. But Kodak of all places,
Listen,
right?
I sat in my lobby here at my studio in Hollywood with the head VP of Kodak for professional film, and he looked me straight in the eye and says, "Don't, we're not worried about digital." And that was, maybe 15 years ago, and look what happened. Kodak is no longer what it was, and that's the beginning of it. Not being aware, not being cognizant, not really appreciating that things are changing constantly. I mean, I would have never bet that Netflix was going to take off like it did. I would have never bet that they're going to be the leading decision maker today. When you read the news today that they're mandating vaccines on all their sets, those are the types of things that leaders do, and they didn't even exist,
Yeah.
at the beginning. So
Yeah, yeah, I know, and it's just spawned, as we know, a whole new industry. So, which is good for filming
yeah,
because
absolutely.
we need content more than ever. I mean, there's like, because there's every day you read, there's another new streaming service that is starting. I don't know
Right.
how we can keep up with them, to be honest with you. I have so many. I go, I don't even know where to begin to watch. So you just, it's like I don't even know because there's so many places to go and watch content. And so it's great for filmmakers because they're looking for content. And again, in Netflix and reading, as I said, this article yesterday about Scott Stuber, of what they're doing. And they gave him carte blanche when he took over in 2017. He doesn't have to go to a committee. He doesn't have to go anywhere. He was a producer, so he knows how to do this. And look what he's done. I mean, he's really changed the industry quite a bit. Just him, but the whole Netflix and the whole model and Ted Sarandos and yeah. So it's a real interesting time, I would think, for filmmakers.
Well, to me, and we've not talked about this, but typically, my business model for Silverman Productions has always been movies that have not only thought-provoking content, but have a purpose. And it's not just purposeful storytelling, but it's social. And I think there's room for more content of this nature, and I can see Matt Damon's coming out with a movie this week that deals with this type of small subject matter, and then he does the big films, which to me I think is massively important, because in as much as I believe what you're describing Netflix has done is extraordinary, they're not going to produce a couple $1 million movie that is about the struggles of the Midwest unless it has big stars in it. It's just the way their business model currently is. But this is something that is really strong, in my opinion, to the purpose of why I'm even doing what I'm doing. Is I want to give back, and do business. My business model is to do purposeful films. So it's exciting, especially if they're received like you received it and enjoyed it.
Very much so, yes. And there is a market there, so we'll let Netflix know. They do some smaller films, don't they? Yeah, I think
They,
they do some.
It's funny to me because, and I'm just saying this, and I think most independent filmmakers would say the same thing. You'd think with all the money they've got, they would set a little pot aside and say, let's acquire already made films
Yes.
that are, in the upper echelon, 5% or what have you, and put those in a box on the demand because, they have that capability. And to me, we always look for that. I'm always mesmerized when I pop up something on HBO that is an award-winning independent movie that they've acquired. So, and that's my previous movies have been on Showtime or HBO, and that's how they got in, because there's a need for that.
Right. Exactly. I mean, as I said, we need more and more content all the time. So where can people? And we'll talk some more about this film, but since we're talking about Netflix and all the
Right.
other streaming services, where can people find Saving Paradise?
Well, the movie is domestically being released by Vertical Entertainment. It comes out September 3rd, and it will be in theaters as well as on demand, and whether it be Amazon or iTunes or I think it's going to be on something like 9 or 10 different streamers, but and it's going to be in 9 different regions. So that might be LA, New York, Chicago, Atlanta, but it's going to be a small release in theaters. But they believed in it and they wanted to put it in theaters, and that excites me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've said it over. I say it over and over again. Movies should be seen in the movie theaters, and
Absolutely.
I really think it should be seen on the big screen, if at all possible. And then that was one of the things I was reading yesterday, that Netflix is, for the bigger movies, they want to do a release, to movie
Right.
theaters, but the
Right.
window is shorter than before, because the people, we need to support the movie theaters. We can't allow them to die and go away. I mean, that
Right.
would be
100% right.
horrific
100%
if
right.
that happened. It really would be. Um, yeah, we need to support the movie, and the smaller independent movie theaters. Ours closed here. I don't think it's going to open unless somebody comes up.
Where are you, in Santa Barbara?
I am in Carmel by the sea.
Oh, Carmel. There's no theaters open there right now?
Well, wait, no, the main theater is, the Cinemarks are open, but our
Right.
small independent movie theater here,
Yeah.
which, I absolutely love and always have supported. It closed during the pandemic. I haven't read what they're going to be doing, if it's permanently closed or not, but that was sort of sad when that
Yeah.
happened. So it's, we need that. We need to have those independent um, theaters to show these kinds of films that the big theaters don't necessarily show all the time. So
Yeah.
that's
No, you're more now than ever, because it appears, if you want to predict the future, it appears that Disney and all that would be Warner Brothers and all their big event tent poles are going to be for theaters, and whether they do it simultaneously is, that's their own prerogative. But outside of that, it appears that streaming is going to be the central form of distribution, and that's sad, because I do believe, and I go to the independent theaters. I haven't gone recently because you're right. There's not new content at the theaters, and hopefully in September we hope that now we got this new surge. So who knows?
Who knows?
I can't even believe we're having this conversation, because I told the writer of my next movie that I was going to have to wait till this is over with, and we said, well, third quarter, fourth quarter, and here we are.
Right. And none of
Yeah.
us knows what's going to go on. It's just
Right.
you just got to be in the moment and enjoy each moment that we have, and just shrug and take it with a grain of salt until we can figure this all out.
Right.
It just is a very interesting time for all of us to be
Yep.
living in, definitely.
Absolutely.
That-
Absolutely.
And that's why a movie like your movie, Saving Paradise, is so, just it's the perfect timing for a film like this, because it is heartwarming, it's touching, it is about, the spirit of mankind, which is, coming through and persevering and making things happen and changing people's lives. And that's really key today, I think, more than ever, as we go through this. And the fact that it's based on a true story, Jay, that was really very surprising, that it was based on a true story, and it makes it even a better movie because of that. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I pretty much pick only based on true stories content, because there's something innately important to me that something that there's so many great stories out there that are real, and in this particular case, this movie, this stuff happens all the time. You just mentioned it with the big boxes just disappearing. I think, and as I said, a metaphor for a pencil. Here you have a company that is employing the vast majority of adults in a small little town, and that, aside from Tyson Foods, where we really shot this movie in Shelbyville, even though it takes place in Pennsylvania, I can tell you right now that without this factory, there'd be 50% less people working. And it's just heartbreaking, because a guy that's counting the beans on Wall Street isn't thinking about the guy on the street. And these are stories that made America what it is. And that's what gets me excited about a true story, because when you unwrap it, you realize it's applicable in your own neighborhood. When
Right.
you hear about people supporting restaurants that are almost closed, or joining fundraising to save a company because they're purposeful, they're needed.
Exactly. Jay, our time is up, but it's been such a pleasure having you back on the show to talk about Saving Paradise. So everybody, search out Saving Paradise. It's a wonderful, heartwarming, touching film, and it's a
Thank you
pleasure
so much.
seeing you again. And I look forward to having you back on the show and with your
Jan,
next movie.
I'm very grateful. And September 3rd is the launch, and you should be able to find it on all those streaming services. So I'm doing a plug there again.
Yeah, go ahead,
Sorry.
right ahead. That's what this is for.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Thank
All right.
you.
Be
Well,
safe.
yes, you too. You too. If you have missed any of the Jan Price shows all about movies, they are all archived on thejanpriceshow.com. You can follow us on Twitter. You can follow us on Instagram at The Jan Price Show. Also, we are on the iHeart Podcast Network, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, you name it, we're there. Also, go to our YouTube channel, The Jan Price Show, and subscribe so you can find us. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much again.
Thank you. My pleasure, Jay.
Bye-bye.